Let us create the first ASP.NET Core web application. To do so, open up your Visual Studio from the Start menu and now go to File, New Project. You can also choose New Project in the Welcome screen of Visual Studio. Now, in this Create New Project dialog box, select C# in the language drop-down list, and in the third drop-down list in the project types, select Web, because we want to create web application. Then it will shortlist all these application project templates. The one that you have to really choose is ASP.NET Core Empty. You may also create application with ASP.NET Core web application, but the problem is, by default it will create a lot of files such as controllers, models, views, etc., which are unnecessary for both learning and real-world project development purpose as well. It may be okay for showing the quick demo, but it is not really good for real-world project development. That is why always, both for learning and real-world project development purpose, ASP.NET Core Empty is better, because it will create the minimalistic files in the startups, and you will be learning each line of the code that you are writing with your hands. So it's better to choose ASP.NET Core Empty. So we are selecting C#, Web, and ASP.NET Core Empty here. And after that, click on Next. And here you need to name your project. This will be a folder on your hard drive. For example, since this is our first application, I am giving the name as My First App. You can give it any other name, but without spaces. And now in the location, you have to enter the folder path where exactly your project files should be saved or created. In my case, in my C drive, I would like to create a new folder that is ASP.NET Core. That means all the projects that we are going to create in our codes will be saved in this particular location, C drive ASP.NET Core. So I suggest you to use the same name, or you can give it any other name. But whatever the name may be, make sure it is simple path like C: some simple name. For example, C drive my apps. And keep the solution name as it is, not a problem. And optionally check this checkbox, place the solution and project in the same directory, so that you will have the CS.proj file and solution file in the same folder optionally. I am not selecting here. And after that, click on Next. And this is the actual drop-down list that you have to focus. Currently, for the first 25 sections in this course, we are going to use ASP.NET Core 6 only, because the version 6 is the LTS version, that is long-term support version. So it is recommended to use ASP.NET Core 6 rather than 7 in the production strength applications. See, the versions of ASP.NET Core 3, 6 and 8 are the LTS versions, long-term support versions. So they are mostly used in the production strength applications. You have to target them. At the same time, you should not miss the new features of ASP.NET Core 7. And we are going to learn the new features of ASP.NET Core 7 in the Minimal API section. Because when you compare ASP.NET Core 6 and 7 versions, in majority of the concepts or topics, there are no any kind of changes between version 6 and 7. Only the point is, Microsoft is constantly working to improve Minimal API concept from version 7 onwards. So you should not worry about version 6 or 7, except you are learning Minimal API. Especially for Minimal API section, it is better to use ASP.NET Core 7. And that's what we are trying to do exactly in this course. Okay, let me select ASP.NET Core 6. And I will make sure the course is up to date with the future releases of .NET Core and ASP.NET Core. And no, I don't require to enable HTTPS at the beginning, at the very first application. We will learn to use HTTPS later. And also about Docker. So you don't require these checkboxes for a time being. Being a first and simple application, you have to select .NET 6, that's it. And after that, click on Create. Okay, the first project has been created. And close this start page, you don't require it. Now, open up your Solution Explorer. And in here, you will be able to see all the list of projects and its files of your current working solution. See, it has only one C# file, that is program.cs. That is the entry point of the application. That means the execution starts from program.cs file. So just double click on that. Okay, the font size is extremely smaller. In order to adjust the same based on your requirement or preferences, go to the Tools menu and then Options. And in this Options dialog box, select Environment, which is the first option, and then select Fonts and Colors. Here, you can select the font for the code and also the font size. For example, the size is 24 and I keep the same default font. Then in the General tab, you can select the color theme that you prefer, either dark or light. Of course, we prefer dark theme in order to less affect the eyes. Click on OK. So the font has been increased. You can also adjust the zoom based on the requirement here in the bottom left corner. By default, it is 100%. You can change it as per the requirement. For example, 250%. See, the text is larger. Alright. So these are the first 4 lines where the application begins. These are the top level statements which are supported by C#9. That means your code doesn't require the static void main in C#9. You can straight away write any piece of the code that will be eventually compiled into a main method internally by the compiler itself. Okay, optionally, if you want, you can write a static void main. It's not a problem. The first statement that you can see here is create builder. This will create a builder for web application, and that is called web application builder. So what this builder can do? A web application builder loads the configuration, environment, and default services. You will learn more about configuration, environment, and services later. But in brief, environment is your environment settings. For example, API URLs or server names. And configuration is your configuration settings such as connection strings, etc. And services are your application services, both predefined and user-defined services. We have separate sections that explains each of these concepts. So once the create builder is called, you will get an instance of web application builder, and that is by default referred by this variable called builder. Using that variable, you can access the configuration as well as services and also your environment variables. Okay, we will talk about them later. So for basic application, you don't require all of those. And then after configuring your builder, you require to call the build. As a result of the build method, you will get an instance of web application, which is also referred by a variable called app. So this app is a variable that refers to an instance of web application object. And through this app, you will be able to configure the middlewares of your application. You will understand more detailed about middlewares and how they work in the respective section called middleware. So, but for time being, you just focus on this basic statement. It is saying that whenever we have received the request at the localhost some port number, then the response should be hello world. Of course, we have to call the run method in order to start the server. In case if you don't call this run method, the server would not be started. So let's run this run button here. You can also press F5 on the keyboard or click on Start Debugging in the debug menu. It starts the server internally, that is Kestrel server, and automatically opens up the browser and runs the URL, that is localhost, some random port number here, and you can see the response. You can adjust the zoom of your text in browser. In the browser, you can press Ctrl+ in order to increase the zoom. Or you can go to the menu and adjust the zoom here. You can plus or minus the zoom. So if the browser sends a request at this URL, our application receives that request and provides this hello world as response. So this is the fundamental and first application in ASP.NET Core. But at this moment, you will be having a lot of doubts or questions. What is the server we are using? And what is exactly HTTP request? And what is exactly the response? And how the request and responses work? We will answer each of these questions one by one, lecture by lecture. Exactly, in the next lecture, we are going to focus on the application servers that are supported by ASP.NET Core.